So you want to be first to know
what is happening in the Denver Metro housing market.
I'm going to give you this month's edition of the First to Know Keeping Current Matters. So then that way, as you keep current, the decisions that you make do matter when it comes to timing the real estate market, getting a great deal, but most importantly, being satisfied with the overall real estate experience. So let's dive right in. As you know, we create these monthly First to Know to make sure that you know what's happening in the Denver Metro, the surrounding 7 major counties. And if you want to get hyper local, book a strategy session with us. We can help you better understand because there are a lot of things changing, which we'll share as we go through this month's market update. And then as always, middle of the month, be on the lookout for the national housing market update so you can continue to see
how is Colorado outpacing the rest of the nation,
which usually gives us a good indication of what is ahead. So the median close price up 3% from last month, the average close price up 5%. Remember, average close, median close isn't what's happening specifically with home values, but it gives us a good understanding of just what type of homes are coming to market and where overall is the average or median close price increasing or relatively staying flat as you start looking at then supply, which really helps us better understand what's happening with home values. Is again, months of inventory is the main term that is used to predict whether or not home values are going to continue to appreciate, meaning rise, stay relatively flat, and or go down. And it starts all with what's happening with the current supply of active listings sitting on the market and new listings of sellers bringing them to the market. So as we look at active listings are down 6% and up 10% compared to last year. Remember, the active listings was over 30% compared to last year at the beginning of the year. So we are seeing a lot of the inventory be purchased or removed from the market. There's 2 things we'll talk about to look out for here in a moment when it comes to that. As you understand that towards this time of the year, people then make decisions to wait to bring their homes back on the market in the springtime. Now, new listings, this is kind of going back to what is happening this time of the year. And as you can see in that orange graph, as we start getting a little bit lower than where we were last year, meaning less sellers bringing their home to the market in October, which if you remember September, we actually had more people continue to bring listings to the market, which was great for available buyers to have more available inventory to choose from. So as you see, almost down 10% compared to last month in new listings. Just remember, this is pretty common for this time of the year. However, we are down 3% compared to prior year. So supply meet demand. Demand is the buyers and what is happening with each and every one of you to the supply that new sellers are bringing to the market. As you can see, pending sales up 2% month over month, 4% year over year. Now remember, we're expecting to see a rise in the amount of transactions next year, maybe roughly around 500,000 to more, and that's a big number of people getting into the market next year. So we already know that the pending sales is going to increase next year. It's going to be dependent on how many more people bring that supply and what happens with the average days for those to go under contract, which we'll talk about in a moment. So as you can see, month supply of listing 3.4 from 3.6 a month ago. So down 6%, up 6% to last year. But again, we also saw increases month over month over month in the double digits going into this year. As you can see that big gap from the orange to the green to the blue. And as you can start seeing, we started to experience decrease in month supply of listing sooner than any time of seasonal years over the last 5 years when we started to see inventory decline back in June. So it's going to be very interesting. And as you can tell, following what happened this month in supply, less active listings, less new listings, and pendings up, we could see a pretty sharp decline, maybe down closer to 3 months of inventory. So it will be interesting to see where we end going into next year. But at the same time, 3 months of inventory is a seller's market, meaning that home prices will most likely continue to appreciate. Now, remember what's interesting about this, that's an overall year over year outlook. Seasonality right now, when you hear people say things like it's a buyer's market,
it's because sellers are willing to negotiate still, knowing that there are active buyers in the market,
but they need some incentives to combat the interest rates and overall affordability. So this is unique. This is the message of this market update, is you're in a seller's market, entering more of a seller's market. And as we look at demand most likely increasing, and as we go into next year, if mortgage interest rates continue to reduce, you see this is a really interesting window over the next 90-ish days to 120 days to maybe go out there and catch the tail end of some real good opportunities, because there's been many people taking advantage of really good opportunities from about April till about September of this year, but we are still now catching back up to where there are certain markets locally where inventory is 2 months, 1 month, and there's really not necessarily a deal or a seller willing to negotiate a lot because the demand for that specific area and homes is extremely high, and we're already seeing that start over again. So right now, a great opportunity to get out there while there's a high predictability that home value is going to keep rising year over year over year, but there are many buyers experiencing buyer market conditions, meaning favorability in sellers being more negotiable and helping you do things like reduce interest rate long term. In fact, we actually had somebody just purchase a property at a 4.99 as the seller is willing to give them roughly about $15,000 in concession to lower their interest rate. Great deals to be made on both sides, sellers and buyers, as you're seeing the supply and demand start to really normalize. But if we get down below 3 months of inventory going into next year, again, with a high level of demand next year, that's going to make it a little bit of a tougher market for those that wait too long. Average days on market, 51 days from 52. This is just a good understanding if you are selling a property to know that that's the average days that the home is in the MLS. The average close to list price is 98.4, meaning that most of the time, whatever you go under contract at, right now you're going to see about a 1.5% less on your net sheet. So important to know. Average showings depending, 15.7. This is meaning on average, it's taking about 15 showings because there's available inventory for buyers then to make a decision. So this is the traffic feedback that you get with your real estate professional to start figuring out, is it marketing or is it price? Showings per listing, as you can see, is only 5. So the challenge for some, as that available inventory, if we have more new listings hit the market and the active listings are still sitting, again, that's why this monthly report and what we provide to you in a strategy review can help you decide, is it now time to buy, sell, or invest? And for many people, it's a great time to purchase because there is a lot of opportunity out there. But as always,
The best time to buy is when your family's ready.
and then staying updated on the market will keep you current. If you keep current,
I promise you, there's a deal to be found in any market.
which is why we're always excited to let you know whether there's concern. And that's how we always close these. Is there any concern to what we're seeing in the real estate housing market? And the answer there is absolutely no to anywhere really in Colorado. Inventory's declining, high probability home prices rising over the next year over year over year. And from there, then it's just a matter of you finding out your affordability and some of the factors that are important. And that's where strategy review comes in place. So book a strategy call with us. We'll help guide you and your family, if anything, a simple one in November. But thank you very much for your continued efforts, your continued feedback in the housing market, because
Even if it's not easy, that doesn't mean it's not a time to buy, sell, or invest. In fact, it might be the time to do it even more because ease is the greatest threat to most people's progress.
however, it shouldn't be hard, which is why if you navigate the market, it'll keep you current and it'll make things matter and it'll make things easier for you. From us to you, have an amazing Thanksgiving, start of a holiday season, and we'll see you on our national housing market update here at the middle of the month.